The wrench slipped from Kim Tae-ho's greasy fingers and clattered against the metal floor. He cursed under his breath and wiped his hands on his already dirty work clothes. The atmospheric processor was making that grinding sound again. The same grinding sound it had been making for 3 weeks now. Tae-ho crawled deeper into the maintenance tunnel. The space was barely wide enough for his shoulders. His knees scraped against the rough metal as he moved forward. Above him, pipes carried recycled air to 15,000 people living on mining station Kepler, 442B. If these pipes failed, everyone would die within hours. No pressure at all, he thought to himself. The grinding sound grew louder. Tae-ho pulled out his flashlight and pointed it at the main circulation fan. One of the blades was bent. Not badly, but enough to throw off the balance. He had requested replacement parts 6 months ago. They were still waiting for the next supply ship from Earth. Tae-ho had been fixing things on this station for 12 years. He started when he was 23, fresh from technical school on Earth. Back then, he thought he would work here for a few years, save money, then go home and open his own repair shop. That was a long time ago. He pulled out his tools and began carefully straightening the bent fan blade. It was delicate work. Too much pressure and the blade would snap. Too little and the grinding would continue. Tae-ho had steady hands. His father had been a mechanic too. Good hands run in the family, his father used to say. The station around him hummed with constant activity. Miners worked in shifts around the clock, digging precious metals from the planet's crust. Scientists studied the strange plants and animals they found. Administrators sent reports back to Earth. Everyone had important jobs. Tae-ho fixed things when they broke. He didn't mind it. There was something satisfying about taking something that didn't work and making it work again. When he was done with the fan blade, the grinding stopped. The air moved smoothly through the pipes. People could breathe easy. Most people never noticed when things worked properly. They only noticed when things broke. Tae-ho was okay with that too. He crawled backward out of the maintenance tunnel. His back ached from being bent over for 2 hours. His knees were sore from crawling on metal. His clothes were covered in grease and dust. It was a normal day. Tae-ho walked through the main corridors of the station. The walls were gray metal, painted white in some places. There were no windows. The planet outside was too harsh for humans without protective suits. The air was mostly carbon dioxide. The temperature was 40 degrees below freezing. The gravity was too strong, but the planet had metals that Earth needed. Rare elements for electronics and spacecraft. So humans built a station underground and sent miners to work there. It wasn't pretty, but it was profitable. Tae-ho passed the dining hall where the evening shift was eating dinner. The food was mostly protein bars and synthetic vegetables. Sometimes they got real meat when the supply ships came. Tonight wasn't one of those nights. He grabbed a protein bar and a cup of coffee and sat at an empty table. Around him, miners talked about their day. They had found a new vein of platinum in Sector 7. The extraction would take 3 weeks. Everyone was excited about the bonus pay. At another table, some of the younger workers were talking about home, about Earth, about their families, about what they would do when their contracts ended. Tae-ho used to have those conversations too. He didn't anymore. His contract had ended 4 times. Each time he had signed a new one. Not because he loved the work or the planet, just because he was good at what he did, and the station needed him. Someone had to keep the air flowing and the water clean and the lights on. After dinner, Tae-ho walked past the diplomatic quarter. This part of the station was different. The walls were painted in bright colors. There were real plants growing in containers. The air smelled better here. This was where the aliens stayed when they came to trade with humans. Tae-ho had seen them from a distance. Tall beings with skin like crystal, others with 4 arms and blue fur. Sometimes beings he couldn't even describe. They came to buy metals from the humans. In exchange, they traded medicine and technology. The technology was always limited. Nothing that could make humans too powerful. Nothing that could threaten alien civilizations. Tae-ho had never spoken to any of the aliens. His job didn't require it. He fixed human machines in human areas of the station. The aliens had their own equipment and their own repair people. He walked past the diplomatic wing toward his quarters. Through a large window, he could see an alien ship docked at the station. It was beautiful, smooth curves instead of sharp angles like human ships. The metal seemed to glow with its own light. Tae-ho wondered what it would be like to travel in such a ship, to visit other worlds, to see things no human had ever seen. But those were dreams for other people. People with important jobs and advanced education. He reached his quarters and opened the door with his keycard. The room was small. A bed, a desk, a chair, and a small bathroom. On the desk was a tablet computer where he could watch entertainment from Earth or read technical manuals. On the wall was a picture of his parents from before he left Earth. They were both dead now. His mother died 8 years ago. His father died 5 years ago. Tejo had missed both funerals. Space travel took too long and he couldn't afford to leave his job for months. He sat on his bed and pulled off his work boots. His feet were sore. Tomorrow he would check the water recycling system in Sector 12. Then he would inspect the backup power generators in the lower levels. Then he would probably fix whatever had broken while he was sleeping. It was a simple life. Not exciting, not important, but it was his life. Tejo was about to change into his sleep clothes when the emergency alarm started blaring. Red lights flashed in his room. Over the intercom, a voice announced, "Emergency in Sector 15. Medical teams to Sector 15. This is not a drill." Tejo looked out his small window. In the distance, he could see smoke rising from the outer perimeter of the station. Something had crashed. He put his boots back on. Emergency situations usually meant broken equipment. Broken equipment meant someone needed to fix it. That someone was usually him. Tejo grabbed his tool bag and headed toward Sector 15. He didn't know that his life was about to change forever. He thought he was just going to fix something that was broken. He was right in a way. But what was broken wasn't a machine. What was broken was the galaxy's understanding of what made humans special. The emergency alarms were still blaring when Tejo reached the outer perimeter gate. Security guards were running past him, heading toward the crash site. Medical teams were gathering their equipment and arguing about safe entry procedures. "The security barriers are still active," Dr. Park Jimin shouted over the noise. "We can't get through until someone shuts down the containment field." "How long will that take?" asked Commander Lee Da-un. The station commander looked stressed. Her usually perfect uniform was wrinkled. "At least 30 minutes, replied Chief Security Officer Nam Woo-jin. "Maybe longer. The crash damaged some of the control systems." Tejo listened to their conversation while checking his tool bag. 30 minutes was a long time if someone was hurt inside the crash zone. He looked at his maintenance access card. As a senior repair technician, he had clearance for most restricted areas, including the outer perimeter. "I can get through the barriers," Tejo said quietly. The officers turned to look at him. Commander Lee frowned. "What do you mean?" "Maintenance access," Tejo explained. "The security barriers have manual overrides for emergency repairs. I can shut them down from the inside." Dr. Park shook her head. "It's too dangerous. We don't know what kind of ship crashed. It could be leaking radiation or toxic chemicals." "Someone might be dying in there," Tejo said. He wasn't trying to be a hero. He just didn't like the idea of leaving someone hurt while they waited for procedures and protocols. Commander Lee looked at him for a long moment. "Do it," she decided. "But stay on comm at all times. If there's any sign of danger, you get out immediately." Tejo nodded and walked toward the security checkpoint. He swiped his access card and typed his authorization code. The barriers recognized his credentials and created a small opening just wide enough for one person. The crash site was 200 meters away. As Tejo walked toward it, he could see the wreckage more clearly. The ship was unlike any human vessel he had ever seen. The hull was smooth and curved, made of some kind of metal that shifted colors in the light. One wing was completely torn off. The nose was buried deep in the rocky ground. Black smoke was rising from several places on the hull. But Tejo's trained eye could tell the difference between dangerous smoke and harmless vapor. This looked like coolant leaks and electrical fires. Bad for the ship, but not immediately deadly for people nearby. He activated his comm unit. "Commander, the smoke appears to be from cooling system damage. No signs of radiation or chemical leaks. The ship's hull is intact in most places." "Copy that, Tejo. Proceed with caution." Tejo approached the wreckage carefully. The ship was about twice the size of a human shuttle. There were no visible markings or symbols that he recognized. But near the main hull he could see a crack large enough to crawl through. He pulled out his flashlight and peered inside. The interior of the ship was completely alien. The walls curved in impossible ways. There were no straight lines or sharp corners. Controls and displays were scattered around the cabin in patterns that made no sense to human eyes, and then he saw her. The alien was trapped under a piece of twisted metal, near what might have been the pilot's seat. She was tall, even lying down. Her skin was silver and seemed to shimmer in the light from his flashlight. Her eyes were large and completely black, like dark mirrors. Blue liquid was pooling around her body. It had to be blood, though it was unlike any blood Taeho had ever seen. The alien was breathing, but each breath looked painful and difficult. "Hello?" Taeho said softly. He didn't know if she could understand him. "I'm here to help." The alien's black eyes focused on him. When she spoke, her voice was weak but clear. "You should not be here, human. It is dangerous." Taeho was surprised that she could speak his language, but he was more concerned about the metal beam pinning her down. "That looks heavy. Are you hurt badly?" "My vessel's emergency systems are failing," the alien said. "There will be an explosion soon. You must leave." Taeho looked around the cabin. He could see sparks coming from several damaged panels. The alien was probably right about the explosion, but that didn't change anything. "I'm not leaving without you," he said simply. He set down his tool bag and examined the metal beam. It was part of the ship's internal structure, twisted by the impact. Under normal circumstances, it would take a crane or heavy machinery to move it. But Taeho had spent 12 years learning how to move heavy things with simple tools. He pulled out his largest pry bar and looked for a leverage point. The beam was wedged against the ship's wall at an awkward angle. If he could shift it just a few inches, it might slide free. "What is your name, human?" the alien asked while he worked. "Kim Taeho," he replied, positioning the pry bar carefully. "What's yours?" There was a pause. "I am called Yaravel. Nice to meet you, Yaravel. This might hurt a bit." Taeho put all his weight behind the pry bar. The metal beam groaned and shifted slightly. Not enough. He repositioned the bar and tried again. This time the beam moved several inches. Yaravel gasped as the pressure on her body lessened. More blue blood flowed from her wounds, but she was able to move her arms. "Can you slide backward?" Taeho asked. "I believe so." While Yaravel slowly pulled herself free, Taeho kept pressure on the pry bar to hold the beam in place. It was exhausting work. His muscles burned and sweat dripped into his eyes. Finally, she was clear. Taeho let the beam fall back into place with a loud crash. He crawled over to check her injuries. The blue blood was coming from several deep cuts on her torso and arms. Taeho had no medical training, but he understood the basics of stopping bleeding, pressure and bandages. He pulled emergency patches from his tool bag. They were designed for sealing holes in pipes and walls, but they were sterile and waterproof. He pressed them over the worst wounds. "Why are you helping me?" Yaravel asked as he worked. "You do not know who I am." Taeho paused in his bandaging. It seemed like an odd question. "Does it matter who you are?" "You're hurt." Yaravel stared at him with those black mirror eyes. She seemed genuinely puzzled by his answer. Sparks were flying more frequently from the damaged controls. Taeho could smell something burning. "They needed to get out soon. Can you walk?" he asked. "I do not think so. The pain is very great." Taeho looked around the cabin for anything he could use as a stretcher. Near the back of the ship, he found what looked like a maintenance panel. It was flat, rectangular, and made of the same strong material as the hull. He pried the panel loose and dragged it over to Yaravel. "This might work as a stretcher. It won't be comfortable, but it should hold your weight." Together, they managed to get her onto the improvised stretcher. Taeho tied his tool belt around one end to create a handle he could grip. "Ready?" he asked. Yaravel nodded weakly. Dragging the stretcher through the crack in the hull was the hardest part. Taeho had to be careful not to bang Yaravel against the twisted metal. Once they were outside, the going was easier. Behind them, the alien ship suddenly flared with bright light. A moment later, there was an explosion. Not huge, but big enough to destroy whatever was left of the vessel. Taeho didn't look back. He kept pulling the stretcher toward the security barriers, where the medical teams were waiting. "You saved my life," Yaravel said as they approached the gate. "Anyone would have done the same thing." Taeho replied. But even as he said it, he wondered if that was really true. The medical teams had been willing to wait 30 minutes for the proper procedures. The security officers had been worried about protocols and safety regulations. Maybe not everyone would have crawled into a burning alien ship to help a stranger. As they reached the security gate, Dr. Park and her medical team rushed forward with a proper stretcher. They carefully transferred Yaravel from Taeho's improvised rescue device to their equipment. What species is she? Dr. Park asked, examining the silver skin and black eyes. I don't know, Taeho admitted. She said her name was Yaravel. Commander Lee was talking rapidly into her comm unit. Yes, sir. An alien survivor. Unknown species. We're taking her to medical now. As the medical team rushed Yaravel toward the station's hospital, she turned her head to look back at Taeho. Thank you, Kim Taeho, she called out. I will not forget what you have done. Taeho waved and picked up his tool bag. His job was finished. Time to go back to his quarters and get some sleep. He had no idea that he had just rescued the most powerful ruler in the known galaxy. The medical bay was in chaos. Dr. Park Jimin stared at the readings on her scanner and shook her head in frustration. Nothing made sense. The alien's body temperature was too low for any life form she knew about. Her blood pressure was either dangerously high or perfectly normal, depending on which human standard you used. Her blood is blue, said Nurse Oh Hai-jin, holding up a sample tube, and it's not carrying oxygen the same way human blood does. I think it carries something else. Maybe a different gas entirely. Dr. Park looked at the alien lying on the examination table. Yaravel was conscious but weak. The emergency patches that Taeho had applied were still holding, but blue blood was slowly leaking around the edges. We need to remove those patches and clean the wounds properly, Dr. Park said, but I don't know what to clean them with. Human antiseptics might poison her. Taeho was sitting in a chair nearby. Dr. Park had insisted he stay for observation since he had been exposed to alien blood, but mostly he was there because Yaravel kept asking for him. The repair human, she called him. It seemed to be her way of describing his job. How do you feel? Dr. Park asked Yaravel in slow, careful words. Weak, Yaravel replied, and cold. Your station is very cold. Dr. Park checked the room temperature. It was set to normal human comfort levels, 22 degrees Celsius. If that felt cold to Yaravel, then her normal body temperature must be much higher than human normal. We can make it warmer, Dr. Park offered. That would help. Dr. Park adjusted the environmental controls. She also activated the decontamination protocols. If Yaravel was carrying alien diseases, they needed to be careful. What planet are you from? Dr. Park asked while she worked. Yaravel hesitated. I am Threnody. The name meant nothing to Dr. Park, but Taeho saw her expression change. He couldn't tell if she was surprised or afraid or something else. Is that bad? Taeho asked. The Threnody are very powerful, Yaravel said quietly, and very private. We do not often interact with humans. Dr. Park was scanning through the medical database on her tablet. I have almost no information about Threnody physiology. Basic anatomy and nothing else. No information about blood chemistry, organ function, or medical treatment. The scanner attached to Yaravel started beeping faster. Her vital signs were getting worse. The patches are failing, Nurse O said. The bleeding is getting heavier. Dr. Park looked at Taeho. What exactly did you use to seal her wounds? Emergency hull patches from my repair kit, Taeho explained. They're designed to seal small holes in metal walls. They stick to almost anything and they're airtight. Show me. Taeho pulled one of the unused patches from his tool bag. It was a small square of flexible material with adhesive on one side. Dr. Park examined it carefully. This is actually quite clever, she admitted. The material is biocompatible. It won't cause infections, and the adhesive is designed to work in extreme conditions. I just thought it might stop the bleeding, Taeho said. The scanner alarms got louder. Yaravel's breathing was becoming more labored. We need to do something now, Dr. Park said, but I don't know what's safe for her species. What do you normally do for humans with similar injuries? Yaravel asked. Dr. Park explained the standard procedures for treating traumatic wounds. Clean the area, remove foreign material, seal blood vessels, and close the skin. Then do that, Yaravel said simply. But I don't know if human medical techniques will work on you. They might make things worse. I am dying slowly now, Yaravel pointed out. Perhaps it is worth the risk. Dr. Park looked uncertain. Making medical decisions for an unknown alien species was far beyond her training. If she made the wrong choice, she could accidentally kill one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. What do you think? She asked Taeho. Taeho was surprised by the question. I'm not a doctor. I fix machines, not people. But you fixed her, Dr. Park said. Your patches worked when nothing else would have. Taeho looked at Yaravel. Her silver skin was getting paler. The black mirror eyes were losing their shine. Maybe treating her like a human is better than not treating her at all. he said. Dr. Park nodded slowly. You're right. We have to try something. She began preparing surgical instruments while Nurse O gathered medical supplies. But first they needed to remove Tai-Ho's emergency patches without causing more damage. This is going to hurt, Dr. Park warned Yaravel. I understand. As Dr. Park carefully peeled away the first patch, blue blood immediately started flowing again, but she could see the wound underneath clearly now. The cut was deep but clean. The edges were already trying to heal themselves. Her tissue regenerates faster than human tissue, Dr. Park observed. That's good. It means she heals quickly if we can stop the bleeding. Working together, Dr. Park and Nurse O cleaned and treated each wound using standard human medical procedures. They were careful and methodical, checking Yaravel's vital signs constantly. To their surprise, everything worked. Human antiseptics didn't poison her. Human surgical techniques closed her wounds effectively. Human pain medications even seemed to help with her discomfort. Either we're very lucky, or Threnody physiology is more similar to human physiology than we thought, Dr. Park said as she finished the last suture. Yaravel's vital signs were stabilizing. Her breathing was easier. The dangerous blue blood loss had stopped. How do you feel? Dr. Park asked. Much better. Thank you, doctor. But their relief was short-lived. Commander Lee Da-Yoon entered the medical bay with a worried expression on her face. We have a problem, the commander announced. I just received a priority communication from Threnody Space. They're looking for someone. A missing ship that was supposed to arrive at the diplomatic station yesterday. She looked directly at Yaravel. They're looking for their queen. The medical bay fell silent. Dr. Park's face went pale. Nurse O dropped the medical instrument she was holding. Queen? Tai-Ho asked. Yaravel looked embarrassed. I did not think it was important to mention. Not important? Commander Lee's voice was getting higher. You're royalty. You're the ruler of one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy, and you saved her life, Dr. Park said to Tai-Ho. You saved the life of an alien queen. Tai-Ho didn't understand why everyone was so excited. She was hurt. I helped her. What difference does her job make? Commander Lee stared at him. Her job? Tai-Ho. She rules over 300 star systems. She commands fleets of warships. She has the power to declare war on entire species. The Threnody have a reputation, Dr. Park added quietly. They're known for being harsh with anyone who threatens their leaders. If they think we hurt their queen? But we didn't hurt her, Tai-Ho said. We helped her. They don't know that yet, Commander Lee replied. And they're already on their way here. Long-range sensors picked up a Threnody fleet heading toward our system. They'll arrive in less than 6 hours. Yaravel tried to sit up on the examination table. How many ships? Commander Lee checked her tablet. 17 vessels, including 3 dreadnoughts. Even Tai-Ho knew that was a lot of firepower. The mining station had no military defenses. If the Threnody wanted to destroy them, it would take about 5 minutes. They will not attack, Yaravel said. Not while I am here. Are you sure about that? Commander Lee asked. My brother Kaelrin leads the fleet. He is protective of me, but he is not reckless. He will want to understand what happened before taking any action. Dr. Park was reviewing Yaravel's medical charts. Can you travel? Are you strong enough to return to your people? I believe so. But I do not wish to leave yet. Why not? Commander Lee asked. Wouldn't it be safer for everyone if you went back to your ships? Yaravel looked at Tai-Ho. I want to understand something. This human risked his life to save me. He used his own tools and knowledge to treat my injuries. He asked for nothing in return. In all my years of diplomatic contact with other species, I have never seen such behavior. What do you mean? Tai-Ho asked. When other species help the Threnody, they want something. Trade agreements, technology, protection, military alliances. But you helped me without knowing who I was or what I could offer you. Tai-Ho shrugged. You needed help. Yes, Yaravel said thoughtfully. That is exactly what I mean. The medical bay's communication system chimed. Commander Lee answered it. Commander, this is Chief Security Officer Nam. The Threnody fleet just entered our system. They're requesting permission to dock. Permission granted, Commander Lee replied. And Chief? Make sure our people are polite. Very polite, she turned back to the others. Well, this should be interesting. We're about to host a royal reunion. Tai-Ho looked at Yaravel. Will you be in trouble for crashing your ship? Probably not. Accidents happen. But my brother will want to know everything that occurred after the crash. He will want to know about you. What will you tell him? Yaravel smiled. It was the first time Teho had seen her smile. Despite her alien features, it looked surprisingly human. I will tell him the truth, that a human maintenance worker saved my life because someone needed help, and that maybe we have been wrong about humanity. Outside the medical bay, Teho could hear the sounds of the station preparing for very important visitors. He wondered what would happen when the Threnody Queen's brother arrived. He had a feeling his quiet life as a maintenance worker was about to become much more complicated. The docking bay had never seen anything like the Threnody shuttle. It was 3 times larger than any human vessel, and moved without making a sound. The hull seemed to glow with soft blue light, and when it landed there was no vibration at all. Commander Lee Da-un stood at the airlock with her senior officers. Everyone was nervous. Welcoming alien royalty was not covered in the standard protocol manual. Remember, she whispered to her team, be respectful but not submissive. We helped their queen. We're not apologizing for that. The airlock opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. The first figure to emerge was clearly a soldier. He was tall like Yaravel with the same silver skin, but his was darker and covered with what looked like ceremonial armor. Behind him came more soldiers moving in perfect formation. Then came Prince Kael'Rin. Even without his title, it would have been obvious that he was royalty. He carried himself with absolute authority. His silver skin was nearly white, and his black eyes seemed to take in everything at once. When he looked at Commander Lee, she felt like he was reading her thoughts. I am Prince Kael'Rin of the Threnody Empire, he announced in perfect human standard language. I have come for my sister. Welcome to Mining Station Kepler 442b, Your Highness, Commander Lee replied with a formal bow. Queen Yaravel is safe and recovering in our medical facility. Recovering? The prince's voice became sharp. She was injured? Yes, but she's stable now. Our medical team has treated her wounds successfully. Prince Kael'Rin's expression darkened. You treated the Queen of the Threnody Empire with human medicine? With her permission, Commander Lee said quickly. She was dying. Our doctor asked for consent before beginning treatment. Take me to her. Now. The group walked through the station corridors toward the medical bay. Teho had gone back to his quarters to clean up and change clothes, but Dr. Park had asked him to return when the Threnody arrived. Yaravel had specifically requested his presence. As they walked, Prince Kael'Rin questioned Commander Lee about the crash and rescue. His questions were sharp and detailed. Who found the wreckage? How long did the rescue take? What equipment was used? The initial rescue was performed by one of our maintenance workers, Commander Lee explained. He was able to reach the crash site before our medical teams. A maintenance worker? Not a trained rescue specialist? He had the proper access clearance, and someone needed help immediately. Prince Kael'Rin said nothing, but his expression suggested he found human procedures questionable. They reached the medical bay where Dr. Park was waiting outside. She looked extremely nervous, Your Highness, Dr. Park said with a bow. Your sister is inside. She's awake and alert. Her injuries are healing well. I will see her now, the prince declared. Dr. Park opened the door and they entered the medical bay. What Prince Kael'Rin saw inside stopped him completely. Queen Yaravel was sitting up in bed wearing human medical clothes. Her wounds were covered with clean bandages. She was talking animatedly with a human male in work clothes who was sitting beside her bed. They were discussing water purification systems. And then the filters get clogged with mineral deposits, Teho was explaining. So you have to reverse the flow every few hours to clean them out. It's simple, but if you forget to do it, the whole system stops working. Fascinating, Yaravel replied. On Threnody vessels, we use molecular screens instead of physical filters. But your method sounds more reliable. Prince Kael'Rin cleared his throat loudly. Yaravel looked up and smiled. Kael'Rin! You came quickly. Sister, the prince said formally. Are you well? Much better, thanks to these humans. She gestured toward Dr. Park and Teho. Dr. Park treated my injuries with great skill. And this is Kim Teho, the maintenance worker who saved my life. Prince Kael'Rin looked at Teho with obvious suspicion. Teho stood up and bowed politely. Your Highness, Teho said, you rescued my sister? The prince asked. I helped get her out of the crashed ship. He is being modest, Yaravel interrupted. The ship was about to explode. He crawled inside, freed me from the wreckage, carried me to safety, and provided emergency medical treatment that saved my life. Prince Kaelrin studied Teho carefully. Why? It was the same question Yaravel had asked. Teho gave the same answer. She needed help. That is all? You did not know she was royalty? You expected no reward? I didn't know who she was. I just saw someone who was hurt. Prince Kaelrin turned to his guards. Clear the room. I need to speak with my sister privately. The guards immediately began moving everyone toward the exit, but Yaravel held up her hand. Kaelrin, I want Teho to stay. Sister, this is a private matter. This human is part of the matter. He should hear what we discuss. Prince Kaelrin looked annoyed, but he didn't argue with his sister. Everyone else left the room except for Teho, Yaravel, and the prince. Sister, Prince Kaelrin said when they were alone, our medical teams are aboard the flagship. We should transfer you there immediately for proper treatment. I am receiving proper treatment here. From humans? Sister, they know nothing about our physiology. They could have killed you with their primitive medicine. Yaravel shook her head. Their medicine worked perfectly. Better than primitive, it was practical. They adapted their techniques to my needs instead of following rigid protocols. She pointed to her bandages. These wounds were sealed with repair patches from Teho's toolkit. Not medical equipment, maintenance supplies. But they worked when nothing else would have. Prince Kaelrin looked at Teho with new interest. You used maintenance equipment for medical treatment? The patches are sterile and waterproof, Teho explained. They stick to anything and they don't tear. I thought they might stop the bleeding until the doctors could take over. And you knew nothing about Threnody anatomy? I've never met anyone from your species before today. Yet your treatment was successful. Teho shrugged. Bleeding is bleeding. Doesn't matter what color the blood is. Prince Kaelrin was quiet for a long moment. Then he activated a communication device on his wrist. Dr. Veltran, report to the human medical facility immediately. I want a full examination of the Queen's treatment. He turned back to Yaravel. If the human medical procedures are adequate, you may continue your recovery here. But I want our doctors to monitor your progress. Thank you, brother. 20 minutes later, Dr. Veltran arrived with a team of Threnody medical specialists. They were tall and elegant like all Threnody, but their silver skin had a slightly blue tint that marked them as medical professionals. Dr. Veltran examined Yaravel thoroughly, scanning her with devices that Teho didn't recognize. After 30 minutes, he spoke to Prince Kaelrin in the Threnody language. Teho couldn't understand the words, but he could tell from their expressions that they were surprised about something. Dr. Veltran says the human medical treatment was not only adequate, it was superior to what our own emergency procedures would have provided, Prince Kaelrin announced. How is that possible? Yaravel asked. The emergency patches created a perfect seal that allowed natural healing to begin immediately. Our standard emergency treatment would have required surgical reconstruction. The human approach was simpler and more effective. Dr. Veltran spoke again in Threnody. Prince Kaelrin nodded and turned to Teho. He wants to know how you determined the correct pressure to apply to the wounds. I didn't determine anything, Teho replied. I just pressed hard enough to stop the bleeding, but not hard enough to cause more damage. Same as fixing a leak in a pipe. Dr. Veltran and Prince Kaelrin exchanged another conversation in their language. Then the prince looked at Teho with something that might have been respect. Dr. Veltran says that many of our trained medical professionals would not have made such good decisions under pressure. You have natural medical instincts and I just fixed what was broken, Teho said. Yaravel laughed. It was a pleasant sound like wind chimes. That is exactly what I have been trying to explain, brother. This human sees problems that need solving and he solves them. No politics, no agenda, no expectation of reward, just helping because help is needed. Prince Kaelrin was quiet for a long time. He walked around the medical bay, examining the human equipment and talking quietly with his medical team. Finally, he returned to Yaravel's bedside. Sister, I begin to understand why you wanted to stay here. This is most unusual. What is unusual? Teho asked. In all of our diplomatic history, Prince Kaelrin explained, no species has ever helped the Threnody without expecting something in return. Trade agreements, technology transfers, military alliances. Even species that claim to be altruistic always have hidden motives. But you helped my sister because she needed help. Nothing more. Nothing less. Teho didn't know what to say to that. It seemed obvious to him. This changes things, Prince Kaelrin continued. If humans are truly capable of selfless assistance, then perhaps we have misjudged your species. Yaravel smiled. I was hoping you would see that. What does this mean? Teho asked. It means, Yaravel said, that you may have just changed the relationship between humanity and the Threnody Empire, and possibly the relationship between humanity and the entire galaxy. Teho stared at her. All I did was help someone who was hurt. 3 days later, Teho found himself aboard the largest spaceship he had ever seen. The Threnody flagship was the size of a small city. The corridors were wide enough for 10 people to walk side by side, and the ceilings disappeared into soft shadows above. Queen Yaravel had insisted he come aboard for what she called medical observation. Prince Kaelrin had agreed, though Teho suspected there were other reasons for the invitation. The royal medical suite was nothing like the station's medical bay. Everything glowed with soft light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. The air smelled like flowers from a garden Teho had never seen. Strange instruments hummed quietly in the background. How do you feel? Dr. Veltran asked Yaravel as he checked her healing wounds. Much stronger. The human medical treatment continues to be effective. Teho was sitting in a chair that seemed to adjust itself to his body shape. He was trying not to touch anything important looking. Everything on the ship looked important. The repair patches you used, Dr. Veltran said to Teho. Where did you learn to apply them in this way? I didn't learn it anywhere, Teho replied. I just thought about how to stop a leak. A leak? When a pipe breaks, you have to seal it quickly before the damage gets worse. You use whatever materials you have and you apply pressure in the right places. It's the same basic idea. Dr. Veltran made notes on a device that looked like a crystal tablet. Fascinating. You treated a medical emergency like a mechanical problem. Isn't everything just a problem that needs fixing? The Threnody doctor stared at him. Not many beings think that way. After the medical check, Yaravel asked Teho to walk with her through the ship. She moved carefully but without help. Her wounds were healing faster than Dr. Park had expected. Your ship is amazing, Teho said as they walked through a corridor lined with windows. Outside he could see stars and the distant glow of the mining station. Thank you. It is one of our newer designs. Teho stopped at one of the windows and pointed to a section of the ship's hull. Is that a cooling system? Yaravel looked where he was pointing. Yes, how did you know? The way the panels are arranged. And I can see heat distortion in the air around them. It's similar to the cooling systems we use on the station, just much more advanced. They continued walking. Teho kept noticing things. A vibration in the floor that suggested an unbalanced rotating mechanism somewhere below. A slight flicker in the wall lighting that indicated power fluctuations. The sound of air moving through ventilation systems that were working harder than they needed to. Is everything working properly on your ship? Teho asked. As far as I know. Why do you ask? Some of the systems seem to be working inefficiently. Not broken, just not optimized. Yaravel stopped walking. Explain. Teho felt embarrassed. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to criticize your ship. It's far more advanced than anything humans have built. I am not offended. I am curious. What do you observe? Teho pointed to a ventilation grate in the ceiling. The airflow through that vent is turbulent. You can hear it whistling. That means the duct is either too small for the volume of air, or there's an obstruction inside. And this matters? Turbulent airflow wastes energy. It makes the fans work harder to move the same amount of air. Over time, that adds up to significant power consumption. Yaravel activated a communication device. Engineering, report to Section 12 immediately. 5 minutes later, 2 Threnody engineers arrived. Like the doctors, they had slightly blue-tinted skin that marked their profession. Yaravel explained Teho's observations. The engineers looked skeptical. One of them pulled out a scanning device and pointed it at the ventilation grate. After a moment, his expression changed. There is indeed an airflow restriction, he announced. Efficiency is 12% below optimal. How long has it been this way? Yaravel asked. The reduction has been gradual. Our monitoring systems recorded it as normal variation. The second engineer scanned several other vents in the corridor. Multiple efficiency losses detected. How did you identify these problems without instruments? Teho shrugged. You can hear the difference. Smooth airflow sounds different from turbulent airflow. You diagnosed our ventilation problems by listening and feeling the vibrations in the floor and watching the air movement around the heat exchangers. When you work with mechanical systems every day, you learn to notice when things aren't quite right. The engineers spent the next hour following Teho through the ship, while he pointed out minor inefficiencies. A bearing that was wearing unevenly, a power coupling that was running too hot, a water recycling pump that was working against excessive back pressure. None of the problems were serious. The ship was functioning normally by Threnody standards, but Tejo's suggestions could improve overall efficiency by 15%. "This is remarkable," the chief engineer said to Yaravel. "Our most sophisticated diagnostic systems did not detect these issues." "Because they are not failures," Yaravel replied. "They are simply suboptimal operations, and apparently humans notice such things instinctively." That evening, Yaravel invited Tejo to dinner in her private quarters. The room was elegant but comfortable. Soft lighting created a warm atmosphere, and the furniture seemed designed for relaxation rather than ceremony. "Are you enjoying your visit to our ship?" Yaravel asked as they ate. The food was strange but delicious. Fruits that tasted like combinations of flavors Tejo recognized. Vegetables that changed color as he chewed them. Everything was prepared perfectly. "It's incredible," Tejo said. "I never imagined I would see anything like this." "I've been thinking about our conversations," Yaravel said. "You have a unique perspective on problems and solutions. I just fix things for a living." "Yes, but you see fixing as helping. And you help without considering what you might gain from it." Yaravel set down her eating utensil and looked directly at Tejo. "I want to tell you something that very few beings outside the Threnody Empire know." Tejo stopped eating. Yaravel's tone had become serious. "The galaxy faces a crisis," she continued. 3 months ago, our deep space scouts discovered something disturbing. A derelict ship from the extinct Morgani civilization. I've never heard of the Morgani. They disappeared 5,000 years ago, but their technology was incredibly advanced. And incredibly dangerous. Yaravel activated a holographic display that showed an image of a massive, dark ship drifting in space. "This vessel contains biological weapons that could destroy entire star systems. The Morgani designed them to eliminate all life on targeted worlds." Tejo stared at the image. The ship looked alien even compared to Threnody technology. Its hull was covered with strange growths that might have been organic. "Why haven't you destroyed it?" "Because we cannot agree on how to handle it safely. The Vailari Collective wants to study the weapons for defensive purposes. The Corvan Trade Federation sees potential profit in the technology. The Raxi Empire wants to claim the weapons for their own use. And the Threnody? We want the ship destroyed completely. But we cannot act unilaterally without starting a war." Yaravel deactivated the holographic display. "Every species approaches this problem with their own agenda. Political advantage, economic gain, military superiority. We have been debating for 3 months while the ship drifts closer to inhabited systems. What happens if those weapons are accidentally released? Billions of beings die, possibly entire civilizations." Tejo was quiet for a long moment. "That's terrible. Someone should just figure out how to safely destroy the ship and do it." "Yes," Yaravel said softly. "Someone should. But every species wants to use this crisis for their own benefit." "Not every species," Tejo pointed out. "Humans would help." "How can you be certain?" "Because it's a problem that needs fixing. And if people are in danger, humans help. We don't worry about what we might get in return." Yaravel smiled. "That is exactly what I hoped you would say." "Why?" "Because I am going to propose something radical to the Galactic Council. I'm going to suggest that humanity be included in the crisis response team." Tejo nearly choked on his drink. "What? But humans aren't even members of the Galactic Council. We're barely space-capable compared to species like yours. Technologically, that is true, but you have something the rest of us lack." "What's that?" "The ability to see a problem as just a problem. Not as an opportunity, not as a threat to your agenda, just as something that needs to be fixed." Yaravel stood and walked to the window. Outside, the stars seemed to stretch forever. "In a galaxy full of beings seeking advantage," she said, "perhaps what we need most is someone who simply wants to help." Tejo joined her at the window. "Do you really think the other species will agree to include humans?" "Probably not. They will argue that humans are too primitive, too inexperienced, too dangerous. Then why propose it?" Yaravel turned to look at him. "Because you saved my life without knowing who I was or what I could offer you. Because you improved our ship's efficiency just by paying attention. Because when I told you about a crisis that could kill billions of people, your first thought was that someone should fix it." She paused. "And because sometimes the most advanced solution is the simplest one." The Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Prime were unlike anything in the known galaxy. The massive dome could hold representatives from 50 different species, each in their own specialized environment. Some sections were filled with water for aquatic beings. Others had different atmospheric mixtures or gravity levels. Queen Yaravel stood at the central podium, her silver skin gleaming under the chamber's lights. Around her, hundreds of beings watched and listened. The translation systems worked constantly, converting her words into dozens of different languages. "Honored representatives," she began, "we have debated the Morgani crisis for 3 months. In that time, the derelict ship has drifted 17 million kilometers closer to the Kepler system. If it reaches inhabited space, the consequences will be catastrophic." Ambassador Zethkor of the Vailari Collective rose to speak. His crystalline body caught and reflected the chamber lights in brilliant patterns. "Queen Yaravel, the Vailari position remains unchanged. We must study these weapons to develop defenses against similar threats. Destroying the ship wastes valuable scientific knowledge that could kill us all." Prince Kelrin interjected from his seat beside his sister. Trade Minister Goxel of the Corvan Federation clicked his forearms together in disagreement. "The economic implications are significant. Morgani technology could revolutionize interstellar commerce. We cannot simply destroy such valuable assets." General Raxthu of the Raxi Empire slammed his armored fist on his delegation's table. "Enough debate. The Raxi Empire will claim the ship and dispose of the weapons responsibly. We have the military strength to contain any threats." "Your military strength is exactly why we cannot trust you with such weapons," Ambassador Zethkor replied coolly. The chamber erupted in arguments, the same arguments they had been having for months. Each species wanted to control the situation for their own benefit. None were willing to compromise. Queen Yaravel waited for the noise to die down. When silence returned, she activated a holographic display showing the Morgani ship. "While we argue," she said, "the threat grows larger. Our scientists estimate that the biological weapons aboard this vessel could sterilize every inhabited world within 50 light years. That includes homeworlds of every species represented in this chamber." "Then what do you propose?" asked Chancellor Wellnim of the Outer Rim Confederation. "I propose we include a new perspective in our crisis response team." Queen Yaravel changed the holographic display. Now it showed images from the mining station. Teho working on atmospheric processors, human miners and engineers going about their daily tasks. "I propose we invite humanity to join our efforts." The chamber fell completely silent. Then the silence was broken by laughter from several delegations. "Humans," General Raxthu snorted. "They barely have faster-than-light travel. What could such a primitive species contribute?" "They have something we lack," Queen Yaravel replied calmly. "And what is that?" Ambassador Zethkor asked with obvious skepticism. "The ability to help without hidden agendas." Queen Yaravel told the assembled representatives about her rescue. She showed recordings of Teho pulling her from the crashed ship, treating her wounds with maintenance supplies, staying with her during medical treatment. "This human risked his life to save mine," she said. "Not because he knew I was royalty. Not because he wanted something in return. Simply because someone needed help." Trade Minister Goxel clicked his arms dismissively. "One example proves nothing. All species have individuals capable of compassion. Perhaps. But observe this." The holographic display showed Teho aboard the Threnody flagship, pointing out inefficiencies in their systems. The chamber watched as he identified problems that advanced diagnostic equipment had missed. "He improved our ship's efficiency by 15%, Queen Yaravel announced. "Not because we asked him to. Not because he hoped for reward. He simply noticed things that could work better and pointed them out." "Impressive for a primitive," General Raxthu admitted. "But hardly relevant to a galactic crisis." "I disagree. When I told this human about the Morgani ship, he did not ask what his species might gain from helping. He did not suggest ways to profit from the crisis. His immediate response was that someone should figure out how to safely destroy the ship and do it." Queen Yaravel deactivated the holographic display and looked around the chamber. "In 3 months of debate, not one delegation has suggested that we simply solve the problem without seeking advantage. Only the humans approach this crisis as something that needs fixing, rather than something to exploit." Chancellor Wellnim leaned forward in his chair. "Even if humans are as altruistic as you claim, what practical value could they provide?" They lack the technology and knowledge to handle Morgani weapons. They have practical problem-solving skills that our advanced technology cannot replace, Prince Kaelrin said, standing to support his sister. Sometimes the most sophisticated solution is not the best solution. Ambassador Zethkor's crystalline features shifted to show displeasure. You would trust the fate of the galaxy to maintenance workers and miners? I would trust it to beings who see problems as challenges to overcome rather than opportunities to exploit, Queen Yaravel replied. The chamber erupted in arguments again. Some delegates were outraged by the suggestion. Others were curious. A few seemed genuinely interested. This is absurd, General Raxthu declared. Humans are barely capable of managing their own planetary affairs. They have no experience with galactic-level threats. Neither did any of our species when we first encountered such challenges, Queen Yaravel pointed out. Yet we all learned and adapted. But the risk, Ambassador Zethkor began. The risk of including humans is minimal compared to the risk of doing nothing while we debate, Queen Yaravel interrupted. The Morgani ship continues to drift toward inhabited space. Every day we delay increases the danger. Trade Minister Goxel raised one of his forearms. What exactly are you proposing? That we give humans access to the most dangerous weapons in the galaxy? I am proposing that we include human engineers and problem solvers in our response team, as consultants and advisors, not as leaders or decision makers, but as fresh perspectives on an old problem. And if they make mistakes, General Raxthu demanded, if their primitive understanding causes a catastrophe, then we will be no worse off than we are now, Queen Yaravel said bluntly. Our current approach has produced nothing but arguments and delays. Chancellor Welneem stood slowly. He was ancient even by his species' standards, and his words carried significant weight in the council. The Queen raises valid points, he said carefully. Perhaps new perspectives would be valuable, but the risks must be minimized. What do you suggest? Queen Yaravel asked. A limited trial. Include a small team of humans in the preliminary assessment phase. If they prove helpful, we can expand their involvement. If not, we can proceed without them. Ambassador Zethkor's crystalline body pulsed with different colors as he considered the proposal. The Villari Collective could accept such a trial, provided the humans work under strict supervision. The Corvin Federation agrees, Trade Minister Goxel announced. But we want guarantees that any solutions developed will be shared equally among all participating species. General Raxthu remained silent for a long moment. Finally he spoke. The Raxi Empire will accept this trial, but if the humans prove incompetent or dangerous, we reserve the right to remove them from the project. Queen Yaravel looked around the chamber. More delegates were nodding agreement. The proposal was gaining support. Very well, Chancellor Welneem declared. The Council will establish a joint task force to address the Morgani crisis. This task force will include representatives from all major species, plus a limited number of human consultants. Who will select these humans? Ambassador Zethkor asked. I will, Queen Yaravel said without hesitation. I have first-hand experience with human problem-solving capabilities. And who will supervise their activities? General Raxthu demanded. We all will, Chancellor Welneem replied. This will be a joint effort with shared responsibility. The formal vote was closer than Queen Yaravel had hoped, but the proposal passed. Humanity would be included in the galactic crisis response for the first time in history. After the session ended, Prince Kaelrin approached his sister. That was risky, he said quietly. If the humans fail, it will reflect badly on the Threnodi Empire. If we fail to solve this crisis, there may not be a Threnodi Empire, Queen Yaravel replied. Or any other empire, for that matter. Do you really believe humans can make a difference? Queen Yaravel thought about Taiho sitting beside her bed, discussing water purification systems while she recovered from nearly fatal injuries. She remembered his simple statement that someone should just fix the problem. I believe they will try, she said, and sometimes that is enough. The next day, quantum communications arrays across human space carried an unprecedented message. The Galactic Council was inviting humanity to participate in a crisis that could affect the fate of all intelligent life. For the first time in history, humans would work alongside the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, not as conquerors or supplicants, but as helpers on mining station Kepler 442b. Taeho was fixing a water recycler when Commander Lee Da-un found him. 6 months later, Taeho was back on mining station Kepler 442b, lying under the same atmospheric processor he had been fixing the night everything changed. The familiar grinding sound had returned and he was adjusting the fan blade again, but everything else was different. Through the station's communication system, he could hear reports from across human space. Park Sung-ho, a sanitation engineer from Earth, was working with Vailari scientists to safely contain the Morgani biological weapons. Kim Hee-jin, a systems analyst from Mars Colony, was coordinating the multi-species technical teams. Dr. Lin Wei-ming, a medical researcher from Luna Station, was developing treatments for potential exposure to alien toxins. The Morgani crisis had been resolved 2 months ago. The ancient ship and its deadly cargo had been safely destroyed in the empty space between star systems. No one had been hurt. No weapons had been stolen or misused. The solution had come from an unexpected source. While the various alien species had focused on advanced containment fields and sophisticated disposal methods, a human engineer named Rodriguez Chen had made a simple observation. The Morgani ship's hull was made of the same organic material as the weapons inside. The entire vessel was essentially one giant biological weapon that had been dormant for 5,000 years. Instead of trying to separate the weapons from the ship, they had simply awakened the ship's biological systems and allowed it to consume itself. The process had taken 3 days and left nothing behind but harmless organic compounds. Elegant, Queen Yaravel had called it. Simple and elegant. The success had led to something unprecedented in galactic history. The Human Integration Protocol. Humanity was now recognized as a neutral problem-solving partner for interspecies challenges, not as a military ally or technological competitor, but as a source of practical solutions and unbiased mediation. Human engineers worked on alien worlds, fixing problems that advanced technology couldn't solve. Human doctors treated patients they could barely communicate with, using simple techniques that worked across species barriers. Human teachers helped different civilizations understand each other's perspectives, all because they helped when help was needed, without asking what they might get in return. Taeho finished adjusting the fan blade and crawled out of the maintenance tunnel. The grinding sound was gone. The air moved smoothly through the pipes again. 15,000 people could breathe easy. Some things never changed. He walked through the station corridors toward his quarters. But instead of the usual gray metal walls, he passed displays showing messages from across the galaxy. Thank you notes from species he had never heard of. Invitations to visit alien worlds. Offers of advanced technology and lucrative contracts. Taeho had turned them all down. He preferred fixing things on the mining station, but he kept in regular contact with Queen Yaravel, who visited the station once every few months. Today was one of those days. He found her in the diplomatic quarters talking with Commander Lee Da-un about establishing a permanent human liaison office at Threnody space stations. Taeho, Queen Yaravel smiled when she saw him. How are the atmospheric processors working? Better now. The grinding sound is gone. Good. I have been looking forward to our conversation. They walked to the observation deck where they could see the stars and the distant glow of alien ships coming and going from the station. The mining operation continued, but now it also served as an unofficial embassy for human-alien cooperation. I received an interesting report yesterday, Queen Yaravel said as they sat down. A Corvan trade ship suffered life support failures near the Vega system. They sent a distress call and the nearest vessel was a human cargo hauler. What happened? The human crew immediately changed course to provide assistance. They shared their emergency supplies, helped repair the Corvan ship systems, and escorted them to the nearest station. When the Corvan captain offered payment, the humans refused. Queen Yaravel smiled. The captain was so surprised that he filed a formal report with the Galactic Council. He said he had never encountered such behavior from an unknown species. We're not unknown anymore, Taeho pointed out. No, but the behavior continues. Every report I receive describes the same pattern. Humans helping others without expectation of reward. Through the observation deck windows, they could see a human transport ship docking with the station. It carried supplies and personnel for the ongoing interspecies cooperation projects. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you had not decided to help me that night? Queen Yaravel asked. Taeho thought about it. I suppose someone else would have helped eventually. Perhaps. But would they have helped in the same way? Would they have used maintenance supplies to treat my injuries? Would they have stayed with me simply because I asked? I don't know, maybe. Queen Yaravel shook her head. I have met many beings from many species. Most are good and honorable in their own way. But they help within the boundaries of their culture, their protocols, their expectations. She looked at Taiho. You helped outside all boundaries. You saw a problem and fixed it with whatever tools you had available. That is uniquely human. It doesn't feel unique. It feels normal. That is exactly what makes it special. A young maintenance worker named Kim Soo-jin approached them nervously. She was new to the station, still learning her job. Excuse me, Taiho, she said. I'm having trouble with the water recycler in Sector 9. Could you help me? Of course, Taiho replied immediately. What's the problem? As Soo-jin described the issue, Queen Yaravel watched Taiho's expression. He was already thinking about solutions, considering what tools might be needed, planning how to approach the repair. I'll be right there, Taiho told Soo-jin. Let me get my equipment. After the young engineer left, Queen Yaravel turned back to Taiho. You did not hesitate, she observed. She needs help. Yes. And you will provide it without question, without payment, without recognition. Taiho shrugged. It's just my job. No, Queen Yaravel said firmly. Your job is maintaining atmospheric processors and water recyclers. Helping a coworker learn her job is something extra, something you choose to do. She stood and walked to the window. Do you understand what has happened across the galaxy because of choices like that? People are working together better? More than that, species that have been suspicious of each other for centuries are cooperating on joint projects. The Vailari and Raxi recently established a shared research station. The Corvin Federation is providing free medical supplies to refugee colonies. Queen Yaravel turned back to Taiho. Your example is spreading. Other species are beginning to help each other without expecting immediate benefits. That's good. It is revolutionary. For the first time in recorded galactic history, cooperation is increasing instead of decreasing. Taiho stood and picked up his tool bag. I should go help Soo-jin with that water recycler. Queen Yaravel laughed. Yes, you should. And that is exactly my point. As they walked toward the maintenance section, Queen Yaravel asked, Do you ever regret choosing to stay here instead of traveling the galaxy as a famous hero? I'm not a hero, Taiho replied automatically. I just fix things. That is what makes you a hero. They reached the maintenance section where Soo-jin was waiting with her tools and a worried expression. What seems to be the problem? Taiho asked. As he began diagnosing the water recycler issue, Queen Yaravel watched from a distance. Here was the human who had changed the course of galactic civilization, patiently teaching a young engineer how to repair a simple piece of equipment. He didn't see himself as special. He didn't understand that his simple philosophy of helping others had reshaped interspecies relations across hundreds of star systems. To him, he was just Taiho, maintenance worker, fixing things that needed to be fixed. And perhaps that was the most extraordinary thing of all. Later that evening, as Queen Yaravel prepared to return to her ship, she found Taiho in the dining hall eating his usual protein bar and synthetic vegetables. What kind of offer? The Galactic Council is establishing a new position. Human Liaison for Interspecies Crisis Response. The job would involve traveling to different worlds, helping solve problems that require creative thinking. Taiho considered this while chewing his protein bar. What kinds of problems? Any problems. Technical failures, diplomatic misunderstandings, resource shortages, environmental challenges, situations where human perspective might be valuable. That sounds important. It is. You would be representing all of humanity. Your decisions could affect the relationships between entire civilizations. Taiho finished his protein bar and looked around the dining hall. Miners were talking about their day. Engineers were discussing technical challenges. Administrators were planning next week's supply deliveries. I appreciate the offer, he said finally, but I think I'll stay here. Why? Taiho gestured toward the people around them. 15,000 people live on this station. They need clean air and clean water and reliable power. If I leave, someone else will have to do that job. Someone who might not know the systems as well as I do. The station could find another maintenance supervisor. Probably. But I'm already here, and I'm good at this job. Queen Yaravel smiled. You are indeed good at this job. But you could be equally good at the liaison position. Maybe, but those people don't